The stars above Earth flickered. For a moment, the night sky looked wrong, as if someone had moved the lights around. Then space itself tore open like fabric being ripped apart. Massive ships poured through the tiers in reality. Each vessel was the size of a city, covered in smooth metal that gleamed with an alien shine. They moved in perfect formation, hundreds of them spreading out across Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blocking the sun. On the largest ship, Admiral Zexthul stood on his command bridge. His forearms moved across control panels while his yellow eyes studied the small blue planet ahead. To him, Earth looked peaceful and helpless, spinning slowly in the darkness. His sensors showed primitive rockets launching from the surface and a few small space stations orbiting the world. Another easy conquest, Zexthul thought to himself. His species, the Kethavar, had been taking over worlds for centuries. They always followed the same pattern. Find a young civilization, show them overwhelming power, watch them surrender in fear. Most species gave up without a fight once they saw what the Kethavar could do. The Admiral's computer systems ran calculations on Earth's defenses. Chemical rockets that could barely reach their own moon, a few orbital platforms with simple weapons, no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no faster-than-light travel. The machines predicted victory in less than 3 days. Send the standard message, Zexthul ordered his crew. The transmission would show the humans exactly what happened to worlds that refused to surrender. The recordings were always effective. On Earth, alarms screamed in every capital city. Satellite networks detected massive energy readings coming from the edge of the solar system. Military leaders gathered in underground bunkers, their faces pale as they watched the alien fleet on their screens. President Chen of the United Earth Federation stood in the main command center beneath Washington, D.C. Around her, technicians worked frantically at computer terminals while generals argued over impossible battle plans. The alien ships were too big, too advanced, too many. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of 12 proper warships and maybe 50 converted mining vessels. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission, reported the communications officer. The main screen filled with images that made everyone in the room go silent. The aliens showed them world after world being destroyed, cities melting under beams of pure energy, entire continents turning to glass, billions of people dying in seconds. The message was clear: surrender or face the same fate. President Chen watched the horrible images without showing any emotion. When they finished, she turned to her military advisors. How long do we have? They're giving us 24 hours, General Martinez replied. After that, they'll start the bombardment. What are our chances in a straight fight? Chen asked. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. 0. Maybe less than 0. The alien admiral waited for Earth's response. In his experience, most species begged for mercy after seeing the destruction videos. Some tried to negotiate. A few offered to serve as slaves. But they all gave up in the end. His communications officer looked confused. Admiral, we're receiving a response from Earth. Zexthul expected to hear the usual pleas for mercy. Instead, the human message was only 2 words long, broadcast on every frequency their primitive radios could reach. Come and take it. The Admiral's yellow eyes widened. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever responded with such simple defiance. He checked the translation systems twice, thinking there must be an error. But the message was clear. The humans were not going to surrender. Sir, should we begin the attack immediately? Asked his weapons officer. Zexthul studied the tactical displays. Earth's defenses looked pathetic compared to his Armada. 12 warships against hundreds of alien dreadnoughts. Primitive nuclear weapons against plasma cannons that could slice through anything. Energy shields that could stop any attack these humans might try. No, the Admiral decided. We stick to the plan. Let them have their 24 hours to think about what they've done. Fear will make them change their minds. But on Earth, fear was turning into something else entirely. In the command bunker, President Chen addressed her military leaders. Gentlemen, ladies, we all knew this day might come. Every simulation, every war game, every training exercise has prepared us for this moment. General Martinez looked grim. Ma'am, with respect, our space fleet can't stop them. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Chen smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. General, who said anything about stopping them in space? Across the planet, hidden installations began to stir. Beneath mountains that had stood for millions of years, massive doors opened silently. Under lakes and forests, camouflaged covers slid away. In cities around the world, buildings that looked normal from the outside revealed their true purpose. The humans had been preparing for this day for decades, not preparing to fight aliens in space where any advanced enemy would have the advantage. They had prepared to fight on their own ground using their own rules. Admiral Zexthal studied his sensor readings as the 24-hour deadline approached. Earth's defensive preparations looked exactly as expected. The small space fleet was moving into position between Earth and its moon. Military bases on the surface were powering up their primitive weapons. Everything was proceeding according to the standard pattern. "Sir, the humans have launched some kind of satellites," reported the sensor operator. The Admiral looked at the readings. Small objects were emerging from Earth's atmosphere, spreading out in a loose formation. They appeared to be communication relays or possibly observation platforms. Nothing that could threaten his ships. "Ignore them," Zexthal ordered. "Begin the first assault wave." 100 alien ships broke away from the main fleet and advanced toward Earth. Their energy shields glowed with power. Weapon systems charged to full capacity. The ships moved with perfect coordination. Their artificial intelligence systems calculating the most efficient way to destroy the human resistance. As the alien attack force closed in, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the EFS Defiance. Around her, the small human fleet prepared for battle. She knew they couldn't win this fight. That wasn't the point. "All ships, remember your orders," she broadcast to the fleet. "We're not here to stop them. We're here to learn everything we can about how they fight. Every sensor reading, every tactical maneuver, every weapon signature gets recorded and transmitted back to Earth." The space battle began exactly as the aliens expected. Human ships exploded under plasma fire. Nuclear missiles detonated harmlessly against energy shields. Magnetic railguns fired metal slugs that bounced off alien armor like thrown rocks. But Admiral Zexthal noticed something strange. The humans weren't retreating. Even as their ships were destroyed, they kept fighting. Some vessels rammed themselves into alien ships as they died. Others deliberately moved closer to get better sensor readings before being blown apart. "Why aren't they running?" the alien weapons officer asked. Zexthal didn't have an answer. In his experience, species either surrendered immediately or fought until they realized they couldn't win, then tried to escape. These humans were doing neither. They fought until the very end, as if they had some reason to believe their sacrifice mattered. Within 4 hours, the human space fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single human ship remained intact. The alien admiral felt satisfied as he ordered his fleet to advance toward Earth's orbit. "Begin planetary bombardment preparations," he commanded. "Target their major cities first. We'll give them one more chance to surrender before we start." But as the alien ships moved closer to Earth, Admiral Zexthal began to notice things that bothered him. His sensors were detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. Some of the mountain ranges seemed to be generating electromagnetic fields, and those communication satellites the humans had launched were now transmitting massive amounts of data. "Sir?" the sensor operator called out, his voice worried. "I'm reading massive energy buildups all across Earth's surface. It looks like they're powering up something big." The Admiral felt a chill run through his forearms. Something was wrong. The battle had been too easy. The humans had fought too hard for too little gain. And now Earth's surface was lighting up like a star on his sensors. "Full scan of the planet," he ordered. "I want to know what they're hiding down there." The results made Admiral Zexthal realize he had made a terrible mistake. The humans hadn't shown him their real defenses at all. Admiral Zexthal stared at his scanner readings in disbelief. The energy signatures coming from Earth's surface were impossible. No primitive civilization should be able to generate that much power. His sensors showed massive installations hidden beneath what he had thought were natural mountains and forests. "Sir, we're detecting weapon systems powering up across the entire planet," reported his tactical officer. "The readings are significant." Before the Admiral could respond, Earth struck back. Every mountain range on the planet seemed to split open at once. Massive electromagnetic pulse generators hidden for decades beneath innocent-looking peaks fired simultaneously. The coordinated attack sent a wave of energy across space that made the alien fleet's instruments scream warnings. The Kethvar shields, designed to stop physical attacks and energy beams, flickered and failed under the electromagnetic assault. For the first time in centuries of conquest, Admiral Zexthal felt his ships become vulnerable. "Shields are down across the fleet," the defensive systems operator shouted. We're completely exposed. That was when the humans revealed their true weapons. Across Earth's surface, hidden installations opened like flowers blooming in fast motion. From underground silos that had been disguised as lakes and urban areas, humanity launched their real response. The projectiles looked simple compared to alien plasma cannons. They were just metal rods, each one about the size of a telephone pole. But these rods moved fast, really fast. The fusion engines accelerating them pushed the metal to a significant fraction of light. Speed Admiral Zexthal watched in horror as the first kinetic kill vehicle punched through his flagship's hull like it was made of paper. The metal rod, moving at incredible velocity, created a hole that went from one side of the ship to the other. Emergency alarms filled the air as atmosphere rushed out into space. Evasive maneuvers, the Admiral screamed, but it was too late. More projectiles streaked up from Earth's surface, targeting every ship in the alien fleet. Without their energy shields, the mighty Kethvar dreadnoughts were just big targets. The alien ships tried to return fire, but something was wrong with their targeting systems. The humans had done something to the electromagnetic spectrum around Earth that made it nearly impossible to get accurate locks on the surface installations. Every time the aliens thought they had found a target, their sensors would be scrambled by interference. On Earth's surface, the real war machine was coming to life. General Martinez stood in a command center that hadn't existed an hour ago. The entire facility had been hidden beneath Central Park in New York City, disguised as natural terrain and recreational areas. Phase 1 complete, he reported to President Chen. Their shields are down, and we've taken out 30% of their fleet. Moving to Phase 2, Chen nodded. Execute Rabbit Warren Protocol. Across the planet, the ground itself seemed to come alive. What the aliens had thought were cities began sliding into underground bunkers on massive hydraulic systems. Entire urban areas disappeared beneath the surface in minutes, replaced by decoy installations made of metal and concrete. At the same time, tunnel networks that had been secretly built over decades opened up. The humans had used the excuse of subway construction, mining operations, and utility maintenance to create a vast underground transport system. Now military units could appear anywhere on the planet within hours. Admiral Zexthal tried to make sense of what he was seeing. How is this possible? Our intelligence showed they were barely capable of spaceflight. His intelligence officer checked the data again. Sir, it appears we were observing their civilian space program. Their military capabilities were completely hidden from our sensors. The truth was even worse than that. While the Kethvar had been studying humanity's public achievements, humans had been studying the Kethvar. Every piece of alien technology that had ever visited Earth's solar system, every energy signature, every transmission had been carefully analyzed and reverse-engineered. Humanity had built their entire defense strategy around one simple principle: never fight a superior enemy on their terms. Instead of trying to match alien technology, they had focused on exploiting its weaknesses. The electromagnetic pulse attack had been designed specifically to overload Kethvar shield generators. The kinetic weapons were chosen because alien armor was optimized to deflect energy beams, not physical impacts at extreme velocity. Even the timing of the attack had been calculated to catch the alien fleet at their most vulnerable moment. But the humans' real advantage wasn't their technology. It was their approach to warfare itself. The Kethvar relied on centralized command systems and artificial intelligence to coordinate their fleets. Every ship followed orders from the flagship, and every decision was made by computer analysis. It was efficient and logical. Human military doctrine was the exact opposite. Every unit from squad level up was trained to operate independently. Commanders were expected to improvise and adapt when their original plans failed. Most importantly, every human soldier understood not just what they were supposed to do, but why they were doing it. This became crucial as the battle developed. When alien forces managed to destroy one of Earth's command centers, the surrounding units didn't collapse. They reorganized themselves and continued fighting. When communications were jammed, local commanders made their own decisions based on training and initiative. Admiral Zexthal found himself fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to any logical pattern. Human forces would appear out of nowhere, strike hard, then vanish before his ships could respond. Every time he thought he had found their main base, it turned out to be a decoy. Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from the human forces, his communications officer reported. The Admiral felt relief wash over him. Finally, the humans were coming to their senses. Put them through. But when the transmission came in, it wasn't a surrender. It was a human commander offering to accept the Kethvar's surrender if they promised to leave Earth's solar system immediately. The arrogance. Zexthul snarled. "Destroy that transmission source immediately." The weapons officer looked embarrassed. "Sir, we can't locate the source. The signal is being bounced through 17 different relay points across the planet." That was when the Admiral realized the humans were doing something no other species had ever attempted. They weren't just fighting to defend their world. They were studying his forces, learning how Kethvar technology worked, and adapting their tactics in real time. Human engineers, working with pieces of alien ships that had been shot down, were already building new weapons based on captured technology. But instead of trying to copy alien designs exactly, they simplified them. They took complex systems and made them crude but effective. Where it took the Kethvar years to develop and test new weapons, human scientists were producing functional prototypes in weeks. They didn't care if their versions were less elegant or less efficient than the originals. They just needed something that worked well enough to kill alien ships. The breakthrough came when human computer specialists did something that shocked the aliens. They hacked into the Kethvar communication network. The aliens had never considered this possibility. Their cybersecurity was designed to prevent other artificial intelligences from infiltrating their systems. But humans didn't use AI for hacking. They used creativity, intuition, and pure stubbornness. The human hackers didn't try to break the alien codes through mathematical analysis. Instead, they studied the aliens themselves. They figured out how Kethvar minds worked, what assumptions they made, and how their social hierarchies functioned. Then they exploited those weaknesses. The first successful hack gave humanity access to internal Kethvar communications. What they discovered changed everything. The Kethvar hegemony wasn't the willing alliance of species it claimed to be. It was an empire built on fear and oppression. Most of the alien crews serving in the fleet were from conquered worlds, forced to fight for their former enemies under threat of total genocide. The humans realized they weren't just fighting one enemy. They were fighting an entire system of forced cooperation held together by terror, and that gave them an idea that would shock the galaxy. President Chen stood in her command bunker, reading the intelligence reports from the hacking operation. Around her, military leaders waited for orders as the battle raged overhead. "Open a channel," she ordered, "not to the Kethvar command ship, to every vessel in their fleet." The communications officer looked confused. "Ma'am, what message should we send?" Chen smiled grimly. "We're going to tell them the truth about their own empire, and then we're going to offer them something the Kethvar never have." "What's that, ma'am?" "A choice." The transmission went out on every frequency the aliens used. But this time, humans weren't talking to the Kethvar leadership. They were talking directly to the crews of every ship in the enemy fleet. And what they had to say would turn the invasion into something completely different. The transmission reached every ship in the alien fleet at the same time, but it wasn't addressed to Admiral Zexthul or any of the Kethvar commanders. It was meant for everyone else. "This is President Chen of Earth," the message began. "We know you're out there. Not the Kethvar who are forcing you to fight, but the rest of you. The Veltar from the Crimson Nebula, the Thexani from the Spiral Worlds, the Korth from the Outer Rim. We know who you really are, and we know why you're here." In the crew quarters of 100 different ships, alien beings stopped what they were doing and listened. Many had never heard their true species name spoken aloud in decades. The Kethvar had forced them all to use generic designations like worker caste and battle drone. "We know about your families being held hostage," Chen continued. "We know about the destruction of your homeworlds. We know that you're not here by choice. You're here because the Kethvar told you that if you didn't fight for them, everyone you've ever loved would die." On the bridge of a mid-sized cruiser, a Veltar named Kixai felt his heart's racing. He had commanded this ship for 15 years, fighting battles for an empire that had enslaved his people. But no one had ever acknowledged what the Kethvar had done to force his cooperation. The human president's voice continued. "We have something to show you. Our hackers have been in your systems for the past 6 hours. We've copied your historical databases, your communication logs, and your operational records. We know the truth about the Kethvar hegemony." Admiral Zexthul realized what was happening and screamed orders at his communications crew. "Cut that transmission. Block all incoming signals." But it was too late. The humans had already uploaded massive data packets to every ship in the fleet. Information that the Kethvar had classified and hidden for centuries was now available to anyone who wanted to see it. The files showed the real history of Kethvar expansion, not the glorious conquest described in official records, but the systematic genocide and enslavement of entire civilizations. The data included recordings of Kethvar commanders discussing which species to exterminate completely, and which ones might be useful as slave soldiers. On ship after ship, crews read about their own people's destruction. They saw evidence of massacres that had been covered up, families killed to ensure cooperation, and worlds poisoned to prevent rebellion. Everything they had suspected but never been able to prove was laid out in official Kethvar documents. But President Chen wasn't finished. "We're sending you something else," her transmission continued. "Technical specifications for every Kethvar control system, security codes for their command networks, and detailed intelligence on their military weaknesses." Commander Kixhai stared at his screen in amazement. The humans had given him complete access to Kethvar battle systems. For the first time since his enslavement, he could see exactly how vulnerable his captors really were. "We're not asking you to fight for us," Chen's message explained. "We're asking you to fight for yourselves, for your families, for your dead worlds and your enslaved peoples. The Kethvar are strong because they convince everyone they can't be beaten, but they can be. We're proving that right now." As if to emphasize the point, another volley of human kinetic weapons streaked up from Earth's surface. 3 more Kethvar ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The mighty Armada that had seemed invincible just hours ago was now missing nearly half its vessels. Admiral Zex Thul tried to regain control of the situation. "All ships, ignore the human propaganda. Continue bombardment of the planet's surface. Any vessel that fails to follow orders will be destroyed immediately." But his threats rang hollow now. The slave crews knew that the Kethvar ships were spread too thin to monitor everyone, and the humans had given them something more powerful than weapons: hope. The first ship to defect was a Thexani destroyer commanded by Captain Velnox. Her people had been among the first conquered by the Kethvar, and she had been forced to watch as her homeworld was turned into a factory planet worked by slave labor. "All hands," she announced over her ship's intercom. "We have served our oppressors long enough. Today we reclaim our honor." The destroyer turned its weapons on the nearest Kethvar command ship and fired. The surprise attack caught the aliens completely off guard. For the first time in their history, they were being shot at by their own forces. Within minutes, other ships followed. A Veltar cruiser opened fire on its squadron leader. A group of Korth frigates coordinated an attack on a Kethvar dreadnought. The invasion fleet began tearing itself apart as decades of suppressed rage finally found an outlet. Admiral Zexthul watched his perfectly organized armada dissolve into chaos. "This is impossible," he muttered. "How did primitive humans cause this?" His tactical officer provided an answer he didn't want to hear. "Sir, it appears the humans understand psychological warfare better than we do. They've turned our own slaves against us." The rebellion spread faster than the Kethvar could contain it. On Earth's surface, human commanders coordinated with the defecting alien ships. President Chen established direct communication with the rebel captains, sharing intelligence and offering tactical support. "Captain Velnox," Chen addressed the Thexani commander, "your ship's weapons are designed for energy projection. We're transmitting targeting data for maximum effectiveness against Kethvar armor." The alien captain felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: gratitude toward another being who wasn't part of her own species. "Thank you, President Chen. My people will remember this day." But the humans offered more than just tactical assistance. They shared something that no other species in the galaxy had ever experienced: the concept of voluntary cooperation between different civilizations. "When this is over," Chen announced to all the rebel ships, "we want to establish formal relationships with your peoples. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. We want to learn from you, trade with you, and explore the galaxy together." The idea was revolutionary. Every species in the Kethvar fleet had been taught that the strong always dominated the weak. The concept of different civilizations working together by choice was completely foreign to them, but they could see it working in real time. Human forces on Earth were coordinating with alien rebels in space, sharing information and resources freely. No one was giving orders to anyone else. Everyone was fighting for the same goal: freedom from Kethvar oppression. Admiral Zexthul made a desperate decision. If he couldn't control his fleet, he would destroy the source of the rebellion. He targeted every weapon on his flagship directly at Earth's surface and prepared to fire. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the remaining Kethvar ships," reported a human technician in Earth's main command center. "They're preparing for full planetary bombardment." General Martinez looked grim. "Even with our defenses, we can't stop that much firepower." President Chen studied the tactical display. The loyal Kethvar ships still outnumbered the rebels, and they were moving into position for a bombardment that would crack Earth's crust. If they succeeded, the planet would become uninhabitable. "Activate the final defense protocol," she ordered. Around the planet, installations that had remained hidden even during the battle began to power up. The electromagnetic pulse generators had been just the beginning. Humanity's real secret was something no other species had ever attempted, turning their entire world into a single massive defensive system. Deep beneath Earth's surface, fusion reactors that had been built under every major city came online simultaneously. The energy they produced flowed through underground power networks to a global array of projectors hidden in mountains, ocean floors, and polar ice caps. The result was spectacular. A dome of pure energy appeared around Earth, extending far out into space. The planetary shield generator was powerful enough to protect the entire world from any conceivable attack. But the humans had one more surprise in store. The same industrial capacity that had built the planetary defense grid had been used for something else during the battle. Hidden factories across Earth had been mass-producing spacecraft, using simplified alien technology and human engineering principles. As Admiral Zexthul prepared his final attack, thousands of human-built fighters launched from concealed bases across the planet. They weren't as sophisticated as Kethvar ships, but they didn't need to be. They were fast, simple, and there were so many of them that they looked like a swarm of angry insects. The new human fleet joined with the alien rebels to surround the remaining Kethvar ships. For the first time in galactic history, the Kethvar found themselves outnumbered by their former victims. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another transmission from Earth." Zexthul almost ignored it, but something made him listen. This time it wasn't President Chen speaking. It was a young human woman who identified herself as Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's Space Forces. "Admiral Zexthul," she said, "you have one chance to surrender. Your fleet is defeated, your slaves have turned against you, and your empire is collapsing. You can end this now, or you can die fighting a war you've already lost." The alien admiral looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was surrounded by enemies who had once been his servants. The final battle began with Admiral Zexthul's desperate attempt to destroy Earth completely. His remaining ships, still loyal to the Kethvar, formed a tight formation around his flagship and opened fire on the planet's energy shield. The combined plasma barrage lit up space like a miniature star. For a moment, it seemed like the Kethvar might succeed. Earth's planetary shield flickered under the massive assault. Warning alarms sounded in command centers across the planet as power levels dropped dangerously low. But the shield held, and while the aliens focused all their attention on breaking through Earth's defenses, they left themselves vulnerable to attack from behind. The rebel fleet, led by Captain Velnox and her Thexani destroyer, struck the Kethvar formation from three sides at once. The loyal alien ships found themselves trapped between Earth's defenses and their former slaves. With no room to maneuver, Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the human fleet from her flagship, coordinated the final assault. "All rebel vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Target their command ships first. Without central coordination, their formation will collapse." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of different species worked together with perfect coordination. Their weapons fire synchronized, despite using completely different technologies. Human fighters danced between larger vessels, using their speed and numbers to overwhelm Kethvar defense systems. On his bridge, Admiral Zexthul felt his empire crumbling around him. The rebellion was spreading beyond just his fleet. Communications from other sectors reported that slave species across Kethvar space were rising up. Entire star systems were declaring independence. Military bases that had been secure for centuries were falling to coordinated revolts. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer territories," his communications officer announced. The Veltar have taken control of the Crimson Nebula sector. The Thexani have liberated their industrial worlds. The Korth are marching on our administrative centers. Zexthul realized that the humans had done more than just defeat his invasion fleet. They had started a galaxy-wide revolution. The information they had broadcast hadn't just reached his ships. It had spread to every corner of Kethvar space, carrying with it proof that the mighty empire could be beaten. "How is this possible?" he demanded.
"We've controlled these species for centuries."
His intelligence officer provided the answer. "Sir, the humans didn't just share military intelligence. They shared something else. Cultural data. Music, art, literature, and most importantly, the concept of individual freedom. The Kethvar had never understood the power of ideas. They ruled through fear and force, keeping their subjects isolated from each other and from any hope of rebellion. But humans had weaponized something the aliens couldn't fight: inspiration. Across the galaxy, enslaved beings were learning that they weren't alone. The music of Earth spoke to hearts that had been silent for generations. Human art showed them beauty that existed beyond survival, and human literature taught them that ordinary people could stand up against impossible odds and win. More importantly, Earth's example proved that different species could work together as equals. The sight of humans and rebels fighting side by side, sharing resources and making decisions collectively, showed the galaxy a completely different way of organizing civilization. On Earth's surface, President Chen watched the battle unfold from her command center. The planetary defense grid was holding steady, and the rebel fleet was systematically destroying the remaining Kethvar ships. But she knew the real victory was happening in deep space, on worlds she had never seen. "Ma'am, we're receiving communications from liberated sectors across the galaxy," reported her aide. 17 different species have declared independence from the Kethvar. They're requesting formal diplomatic contact with Earth. Chen smiled. This was what they had really been fighting for. Not just Earth's survival, but the chance to build something better than the empire they were destroying. The turning point came when Admiral Zexthul's own crew began to question their orders. Unlike the slave soldiers on other ships, these were true Kethvar, raised from birth to believe in their species' superiority. But even they could see that their empire was collapsing. "Admiral," his second-in-command said quietly, "perhaps we should consider surrender. The fleet is lost and continued fighting will only result in more casualties." Zexthul turned his four eyes on the subordinate with fury. "The Kethvar do not surrender. We die with honor or we do not die at all." But when he looked around his bridge, he saw doubt in the faces of his crew. For the first time in their lives, these loyal soldiers were questioning whether their cause was worth dying for. The doubt turned to open mutiny when a human transmission reached his ship. Not a military communication, but something else entirely. It was a piece of human music, a simple song about hope and freedom that had been translated into every language in the fleet. The melody was haunting, beautiful in a way that Kethvar art had never aspired to be. It spoke of sacrifice for others, of fighting not for conquest but for protection, of finding strength in cooperation rather than domination. As the song played through his ship's communication system, Admiral Zexthul watched his crew lay down their weapons. These soldiers who had followed him across the galaxy, who had conquered worlds in his name, were refusing to fight anymore. "Admiral," his weapons officer said softly, "I have children on the homeworld. I want them to grow up in a galaxy where music like this can exist." That was when Zexthul understood what the humans had really done. They hadn't just defeated his military forces. They had defeated the idea that strength came from making others weak. They had shown the galaxy a different way of being strong, by making others stronger too. The last Kethvar ship surrendered without firing another shot. Their crews, both slave and free, had realized that they were fighting for something that wasn't worth preserving. Admiral Sarah Chen accepted the surrender personally, boarding Zexthul's flagship with a small diplomatic team. The young human admiral walked onto the bridge where the most feared military commander in the galaxy waited for her. "Admiral Zexthul," she said formally, "I accept your surrender on behalf of Earth and our allies. Your crew will be treated according to Galactic Conventions of War." The alien admiral looked at her with confusion. "What are Galactic Conventions of War?" Sarah smiled. "We're about to write them. Together. All of us." Over the following days, representatives from dozens of liberated species gathered in Earth's orbit. They came not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals seeking to build something new. The meetings were held aboard captured Kethvar ships that had been converted into neutral diplomatic spaces. President Chen addressed the first session of what would become known as the Galactic Liberation Council. We gather here not to replace one empire with another, but to ensure that no empire like the Kethvar can ever exist again. The discussions were difficult. Species that had been enemies for centuries had to learn to trust each other. Different forms of government, different values, and different ways of thinking about freedom all had to be reconciled. But humans had something to offer that helped bridge the gaps: their experience with voluntary cooperation. Earth itself was a model of different cultures working together while maintaining their unique identities. Captain Velnox, representing the Thexani delegation, spoke for many when she said, "On my world, we believed that unity required uniformity. The humans have shown us that strength comes from diversity, not despite it." The Kethvar themselves presented the biggest challenge. What do you do with a species that had built their entire civilization around dominating others? Some delegates called for exile or imprisonment. Others suggested forced rehabilitation. It was Admiral Zexthul himself who provided the answer. During one heated debate, he stood up and addressed the council directly. "My species has caused immeasurable suffering," he said. "We cannot undo what we have done, but perhaps we can prevent it from happening again." He proposed that the Kethvar serve as guardians of galactic peace, using their military knowledge to protect other species from would-be conquerors. It would be a form of redemption through service, allowing his people to use their skills for protection rather than oppression. The proposal was controversial, but President Chen supported it. "Everyone deserves a chance at redemption," she argued. And who better to recognize the signs of emerging tyranny than those who practiced it themselves? The final agreement established the Galactic Federation, a voluntary alliance of free worlds united by common principles rather than military force. Each species maintained its independence and culture while participating in collective defense and cooperation. Earth became the de facto capital, not because humans demanded it, but because they were the only species that every other member trusted to be fair. The planet that had once seemed helplessly primitive now served as the meeting ground for the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Chen was elected as the first Supreme Commander of Federation forces, with Admiral Zexthul serving as her deputy and strategic advisor. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that the human who had defeated the Kethvar Empire was now working side by side with its former leader. 6 months after the fall of the Kethvar Empire, Earth's skies were filled with ships from across the galaxy. The orbital space around the planet had become the busiest hub of interstellar commerce and diplomacy anyone had ever seen. Vessels from dozens of different worlds arrived daily, bringing delegations, trade goods, and refugees seeking new homes. President Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Federation headquarters, watching a massive Veltar transport dock with the station. The ship carried survivors from worlds that the Kethvar had devastated, people who were finally free to return home or find new places to settle. "Ma'am, the morning briefing is ready," announced her aide, a young Thexani diplomat named Kexrin who had volunteered to serve in the new government. Chen nodded and made her way to the conference room where representatives from 43 different species waited for the daily coordination meeting. It was still surreal to see so many different forms of life working together, but it had become routine remarkably quickly. Admiral Sarah Chen was already there, discussing patrol routes with Admiral Zexthul. The sight of the human and Kethvar commanders working together still surprised visitors, but the partnership had proven incredibly effective. Zexthul's knowledge of galactic military threats combined with Sarah's innovative tactics made the Federation fleet nearly unbeatable. "What's our status report today?" President Chen asked as she took her seat. 3 more star systems have applied for Federation membership," reported the Veltar representative. "The Outer Rim colonies are requesting assistance with infrastructure development, and we've received first contact signals from species beyond our local galaxy arm." That last item made everyone in the room sit up straighter. First contact with completely unknown civilizations was still rare and exciting, even though it happened almost weekly now. "What kind of signals?" Sarah asked. long-range transmissions containing mathematical sequences and what appears to be music. The communications officer replied. The analysis team believes they've been trying to contact us ever since word of the liberation reached their space. President Chen smiled. It seemed that news of the galaxy's first voluntary federation was spreading farther and faster than anyone had expected. Species that had never heard of Earth or humanity were reaching out, curious about the civilization that had ended the Age of Empires. Set up a first contact team, she ordered, standard protocols, and make sure we include representatives from multiple species. We want them to understand that this is about more than just humanity. The meeting continued with reports from across the galaxy. Former Kethvar factory worlds were being converted into research centers and universities. Slave species were establishing their own governments for the first time in centuries. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Empire were now open to everyone. But not everything was perfect. There were still challenges that kept the Federation leadership busy every day. We're still dealing with resistance from Kethvar hardliners, Admiral Zexthul reported. 3 remote sectors have refused to recognize the new government. They're calling themselves the True Empire and attempting to rebuild the old military structure. Sarah leaned forward. How serious is the threat? Limited for now, Zexthul replied. They have perhaps 50 ships in control of some minor systems, but they could become dangerous if they manage to recruit additional support. President Chen considered the problem. The Federation had agreed that membership was voluntary, which meant they couldn't force compliance from unwilling systems. But they also couldn't allow the old empire to rebuild itself and start conquering worlds again. Send a diplomatic mission first, she decided. Let them know they're welcome to join the Federation whenever they're ready. But make it clear that we won't tolerate any attempts to resume the old ways of conquest. It was the kind of delicate balance the Federation dealt with constantly. How do you preserve freedom while preventing its abuse? How do you maintain peace without becoming the kind of empire you fought to destroy? The answer, they were learning, was vigilance combined with patience. The Federation had the military strength to enforce its principles when necessary, but it preferred to lead by example whenever possible. After the meeting, President Chen took a shuttle down to Earth's surface. She wanted to visit the memorial gardens that had been built where the first battle of the war had taken place. The site now served as a reminder of what had been sacrificed to achieve freedom. The gardens were beautiful and peaceful, filled with plants from worlds across the galaxy. Families of all species came here to remember loved ones who had died fighting for liberation. Human children played alongside young Veltar and Thexani, all of them growing up in a galaxy their parents could never have imagined. At the center of the memorial stood a simple stone monument with an inscription in every known language. To those who chose to fight rather than surrender, who preferred freedom to safety, and who proved that hope is stronger than fear. As Chen read the words, she was joined by Admiral Zexthul. The former Kethvar commander visited the memorial regularly, often standing for hours in silent contemplation. Do you ever regret it? Chen asked him. Giving up your empire? Zexthul was quiet for a long moment. I regret that it took defeat to show me what we had become. My people were not always conquerors. Once we were explorers, scientists, artists. The empire made us forget who we were meant to be. He gestured toward a group of Kethvar children playing with their human friends. These young ones will grow up knowing that strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. They will build things instead of destroying them. That is worth any regret I might feel. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from orbit. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice came through clearly. All senior staff, please return to headquarters immediately. We've received a Priority 1 transmission from the edge of the galaxy. Priority 1 meant either a major threat or an unprecedented opportunity. Chen and Zexthul exchanged glances and headed for the nearest transport. Back on the space station, they found the command center buzzing with activity. Sarah was standing at the main display studying what appeared to be star charts of unknown regions. What do we have? President Chen asked. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching from outside our galaxy, Sarah reported. Unknown configuration, but the energy signatures are enormous. They'll reach our outer systems in approximately 6 weeks. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Was this another invasion like the Kethvar had attempted? Had Earth's victory simply attracted the attention of an even more powerful enemy? Admiral Zexthul studied the sensor data with his 4 eyes focused intently. These readings don't match any known technology, he said slowly. But the formation pattern suggests peaceful intent. They're not approaching like an invasion force. How can you tell? Sarah asked. Invasion fleets spread out to prevent easy targeting, Zexthol explained. This fleet is maintaining tight formation, which would be tactically foolish unless they don't expect to fight. As if to confirm his analysis, the communications array received a transmission from the approaching fleet. The message was complex, containing mathematical proofs, scientific data, and what appeared to be cultural information. The translation came through after several hours of analysis. Greetings to the builders of the Galactic Federation. We are the Synthesis, a collective of civilizations from the Andromeda Galaxy. We have heard of your liberation war and your new form of government. We come seeking knowledge, friendship, and the possibility of cooperation between our galaxies. President Chen felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. First contact between entire galaxies was something no one had ever imagined. The Federation was barely 6 months old, and they were already being asked to represent their entire region of space to alien visitors from unimaginably distant worlds. How do we respond to something like this? She asked the assembled leaders. Captain Velnox, now serving as the Federation's chief diplomat, spoke up. The same way we've responded to everything else. With honesty, openness, and the offer of friendship to those who come in peace. Over the following weeks, preparations began for what would be the most significant first contact event in galactic history. Representatives from every Federation world contributed to the planning, sharing their expertise and cultural perspectives. The Kethvar provided military analysis and security protocols. The Veltar offered their skills in interstellar communication. The Thexani contributed their expertise in cultural exchange. Humanity brought their experience in building voluntary cooperation between diverse groups. When the Synthesis fleet finally arrived, they were met not by a single species, but by the combined representatives of the entire galaxy. The first meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a specially constructed station designed to accommodate beings from 2 completely different galactic environments. The Synthesis delegates were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They appeared to be a true collective consciousness, individual beings who could share thoughts and experiences directly. But despite their alien nature, they shared something fundamental with the Federation, a belief that civilization worked best when everyone contributed freely.